Christianity makes objective truth claims. These claims are true or false, regardless of what we believe about them. They are not mind-dependent. Our opinions cannot change them. They cannot make them true if they are not. They cannot keep them from being true if they are. Hey guys, I'm Bill Westers, and this is the Encountering Truth podcast. Hey guys, welcome to the Encountering Truth podcast, where we examine the evidence for Christianity, engage culture with kindness and conviction, and encounter Jesus as the way, the truth, and the life. Well, we've got a really big episode in store for you today. It's possibly one of the most important that we've ever done here on the Encountering Truth podcast. But before we dive into things, I want to take a moment and just ask you to remember to subscribe to the podcast and click that bell icon so that you can get notified anytime we have a new episode come out. Also, if you enjoyed the podcast or this episode in particular, make sure to share it with your friends so we can get the word out and help those algorithms get going. And then, of course, make sure to check out our webpage, encounteringtruth.org, and also connect with us on Facebook at Encountering Truth. So as I said, we have a really big episode. This is super important because this is the foundation for everything that we do here on the Encountering Truth podcast. When we talk about apologetics and giving a reason for the hope that we have, as 1 Peter 3:15 says, always being prepared to make a defense to anyone who asks you for a reason for the hope that is in you. So before we can even do apologetics, the very thing that we have to do, we have to have clarity and be clear what it is that we are actually defending, making a defense for. If Christianity is just a matter of personal preference, like our favorite type of dessert, then why bother putting the effort into defending it? After all, everybody's allowed to have their own personal opinions and preferences and their own favorite dessert. And nobody's really going to take us seriously if we're really trying to defend our favorite dessert as if there's only one right answer. But on the other hand, if Christianity is more like a tried and true cure for a fatal disease like tuberculosis or like insulin is for diabetes, then we have more reason to take a stand and to defend it. So what kind of claim are we making with Christianity? Is it just about personal opinion and preference, or is it objective truth? So I received on one of my YouTube videos, I received a comment. This was actually the second episode that we did about the moral argument, where we discussed that how the idea of objective morality as evidence for the existence of God. And that was in episode 2. And I received a comment, and what I came to realize is that not everyone actually really understands the difference between what it means to be subjective versus objective. And so I had this comment, which ironically was actually posted on a different video of mine weeks later, where I also briefly mentioned the moral argument for the existence of God. And so it makes me wonder, does this person just kind of go throughout and search throughout the internet and the YouTube videos looking for the topic of objective morality or the moral argument, and then just copy and paste some sort of generic comments about it? I don't know. This is just a very interesting situation, but I'll go ahead and read the comment. They said, "Tell me, dear, is your opinion regarding the correct God, who's allegedly the basis for morality, a subjective one or an objective one?" And he goes on to say, "Can we use any God as the basis for this objective moral standard you speak of, or just the specific subjective, invisible being you determined to be the correct one out of the many thousands man has proposed?" So the first thing that stands out to me about this comment, well, besides the fact that this person is calling me dear, I don't know this person, and it really feels pretty condescending, but I guess when you're posting something against the idea of objective morality, you're showing that you don't have this a sense of a transcendent moral standard, and relativistic type of standard is what rules for you. And so I guess I can't really expect this person, if they don't have a moral standard to submit themselves to, then I guess the idea of politeness and all of that stuff kind of goes out the window. But other than that, the one thing that stands out to me here is that this person clearly does not have a good understanding of the difference between an objective versus a subjective truth claim. In fact, they're implying in their comment that my opinion about something makes the truth claim subjective. And actually, the point kind of misses the whole point of the moral argument. The point is that when we are talking about objective morality or objective truth claims, opinions are actually completely irrelevant. They have no bearing on whether that statement is true or false. For example, you are allowed to have an opinion about, or a subjective belief about the law of gravity, but if my opinion says that gravity doesn't exist, then I'm not just going to go floating up into space, right? Of course, opinions are by definition subjective, but the issue is that when it comes to an objective truth claim like God exists, or even about what the correct God is, then someone's opinions are actually completely irrelevant. They can have these opinions or make these claims, but they will either objectively be right or be objectively wrong. And they can sincerely believe something, but still be sincerely wrong. Why? Because objective truth claims are true or false based on the object rather than the subject making the claim. Okay, so what do I mean? Well, think about this, okay? I used to believe that the best dessert in the world was hot apple pie with vanilla ice cream on top. There's something about that hot and cold and the apple pie with the vanilla. Oh, it was just so good. But then, years later, as a coffee-loving young adult, I discovered something called tiramisu. Ladyfingers soaked in espresso, covered with mascarpone cheese and topped with a fine layer of cocoa powder. This was perfection. And now, this is the best dessert in the world, tiramisu. And if you disagree with me, well, you are objectively wrong. Of course not. You are not objectively wrong because that is my subjective opinion. You might not be a coffee lover, or maybe you're a texture person, and so the texture of tiramisu just doesn't do it for you. It throws you off. But in the end, you are a different subject than me. You have your own different opinions and subjective personal preferences than I do. In fact, even I changed my own mind about the best dessert. The fact is that subjective claims are anchored in the subject. They can change simply by changing your mind about something. On the other hand, if I said something like the Eiffel Tower is in Paris, France, or a water molecule is made up of 2 hydrogen atoms and an oxygen atom, well, then my opinion about that doesn't actually even matter. Those are not opinions about dessert. They are not mind dependent. If I change my mind about those claims, it doesn't make them any less true. In fact, it makes me objectively wrong. They are objective truth claims. They're not anchored in the mind of the subject. They are anchored in the actual objects themselves, the Eiffel Tower and a water molecule. I can't make the statement true if it isn't, and I can't keep it from being true if it is. So what makes a statement true? Let's say that I said that I had a $20 bill in my wallet. What would make that statement true? Well, you might say, well, you can see it. Well, what if my wallet's closed in a different room? Can't does it not? Is that not a true statement? Or you might say, well, I believe that it's true. Well, if you didn't believe it's true, does that affect the existence of a $20 bill in my wallet? No. What makes that statement true is that there actually is a $20 bill sitting folded up, tucked into my wallet. This is what we call the correspondence theory of truth, which means that something is true if it corresponds to or lines up with reality. It is not mind dependent. It's true regardless of what someone's beliefs, opinions, or desires. As much as I would like to believe that I could make a $20 bill appear in my wallet just by thinking about it or changing my mind about it, the truth is that I can't make that true if it's not true, and I can't keep it from being true if it is true. I might not believe that there's a $20 bill in my wallet. Maybe I forgot and I didn't think I had anything in there. Maybe I might not like that there's a $20 bill in my wallet. Maybe I wish that it was a $50 bill or a $100 bill. But it doesn't matter what I believe. It doesn't matter what I like. Whether I like it or not, the truth maker is the actual $20 bill that is sitting in my wallet. Because something doesn't exist or not exist based on someone's belief about it. So let's play a what if game, okay? Think about it this way. So what if I don't believe in gravity? Does that mean I'm going to float away into space? No. What if I do believe in the tooth fairy? Does that mean I'm going to wake up with money under my pillow if I knock out a tooth? Of course not. What if I don't like the mathematical law of subtraction when it comes to my bank account? or what if I stop believing in God or start believing in Buddhism or in Zeus? Does someone's beliefs about something make it start or stop being true? What if I've been offended by Christians? What if I've been welcomed and accepted by members of a cult? Do people's behaviors determine the truth about their beliefs and religions? No. It might speak to how well that they live up to those beliefs that they hold, but it doesn't determine whether or not their beliefs themselves are actually true. So then, what kind of truth or truth claim is Christianity? When we make a defense and give a reason for the hope that is in us, what kind of truth claim are we making and defending? Is it just subjective based on opinions and personal preferences like our favorite dessert? Is it mind dependent? Is it true for us but maybe not for them? True for me, not for you type of thing? Or is it objective, true or false regardless of your opinion about it? See, much of our culture today, they try to put religion in the realm of preference. They don't want people pushing their beliefs on them. And why would they if they consider that religious beliefs are basically the same as your opinions about a dessert? I mean, after all, I wouldn't want someone trying to push their belief on me that lemon meringue or key lime pie are the best. I mean, I have tiramisu, right? See, the problem is that Christianity doesn't make dessert claims. It makes claims about a cure. Christianity and Jesus himself make exclusive and objective truth claims that are either true or false, regardless of whether someone believes them or not. Some of them are: God exists. He created the heavens and the earth and everything in them, including mankind. Another claim is that all humans have sinned and need a savior. and that Jesus is the Son of God, born of a virgin, that he lived a sinless life and performed many miracles. He died on a cross as a substitutionary atonement for the sins of all of humanity. He was resurrected from the dead, ascended into heaven, and is coming back. Jesus himself said, I am the way, the truth, and the life, and no man comes to the Father except through me, in John 14:6. He predicted his own death and resurrection, and then he proved that his claims were true by raising himself from the dead. Christianity makes objective truth claims. These claims are true or false, regardless of what we believe about them. They are not mind-dependent. Our opinions cannot change them. They cannot make them true if they are not. They cannot keep them from being true if they are. And so if Christianity is true, then it is true for everyone, everywhere, regardless of anyone's opinion about it, regardless of what anyone believes about it, regardless if someone likes it or not, or whether someone has been hurt by the church or other Christians. Everybody has their opinions and beliefs, and we all have reasons for why we believe what we believe. But when we are making objective truth claims, like God exists or Christianity is true, our beliefs are either right or they're wrong, true or false, regardless of our opinions or anyone else's. So how do we know if something is true? Well, we examine the evidence. We look at all the possible explanations and we line up the explanations with the evidence and we decide what possible explanation best accounts for all the evidence. We come to a reasonable conclusion, the most logical conclusion from the evidence. Could we still be wrong? Of course. But we have good reason to believe that Christianity is true. We could look at the cosmological argument, the design argument, the moral argument, the evidence for the resurrection, the reliability of the New Testament as an early eyewitness account that's been corroborated by inside and outside sources. We have good reason to believe that Christianity is true. So going back to that YouTube comment, the commenter asks, can you use any God as your objective standard or just the subjective being you determined to be the correct one out of the many thousands that man has proposed? Well, let me ask you this. Can you use any medical treatment or medication to cure tuberculosis out of all the thousands proposed by man? No. You have to use the right treatment, the right medication. But that doesn't depend on any person's opinion. It is grounded in the object itself, the medication itself that does the job. If you use the wrong one, it won't work. You can try it. You can believe it's the right one, but in the end, the patient will die. But if something is objective in nature and has that kind of life or death significance, then it is worth putting forth the time and the energy and the effort into figuring out which is actually the right treatment and the right medication. The same is true of God. That the existence of God is an objective truth claim. God either exists or he does not, regardless of what anyone believes about it, anyone's personal opinions or preferences, likes or dislikes. If there is a God, then there is a right and true God, and which means that everything else would be a false God. But again, which God is the true God does not depend on anyone's beliefs or opinions about it any more than their opinion about whether the answer to 2 + 2 is actually 4. There is a right answer and there is a wrong answer. However, because the correct answer to the God question carries with it such eternal significance, it is worth every bit of time and energy and effort that we put into it to figure out which is the true God. And if there is a right and true God, then that God has laid out a particular way in which we should respond to him, in a proper way for us to live on a daily basis, to live our lives. Then we should seek to identify what that is and live our lives in accordance with that. As C.S. Lewis said, Christianity, if false, is of no importance, and if true, of infinite importance. The only thing it cannot be is moderately important. So all religions make objective claims. Now, they can all be wrong, but they cannot all be right, because they make contradictory claims. Christianity believes that Jesus is the Son of God. Judaism does not. Judaism does not believe that Muhammad is one of the prophets. Islam does. Islam doesn't believe that Jesus died on the cross. Christianity does. But just because people have different beliefs about something, it does not logically follow that there is no correct answer. Again, just go to a high school math class. There's a lot of opinions and beliefs about a right answer, but there's only one correct answer. Doesn't mean there is no correct answer. So what do? We examine the evidence. We look at the cumulative case. We have good reason to believe that Christianity is true. Could we be wrong? It's possible. Anything's possible. But is it reasonable? What is the most reasonable conclusion from the evidence? Again, we have good reason to believe that Christianity is true. And Christianity is not about personal preference. We don't just choose it because we like it or because it works for us. In fact, Alisa Childers and Tim Barnett recently came out with a brand new book just this week called The Deconstruction of Christianity: What It Is, Why It's Destructive, and How to Respond. And they have a passage in there where they say, when we say Christianity is true, there's a common confusion that occurs. Our contemporary culture thinks we're claiming Christianity is true for me. They assume that we're making a subjective claim, not an objective claim. That's because religious beliefs have been pushed into the upper story. Like choosing ice cream, many people assume that religious beliefs are based on your tastes or what works for you. And they go on to say that, but we are not merely claiming that Christianity is our personal preference. We're claiming that Christianity is true to reality. It fits the way the world really is. It's objectively true. They go on to quote J. Warner Wallace, who we've talked about before, the cold case homicide detective that wrote Cold Case Christianity. He says, "I'm not a Christian because it works for me. I had a life prior to Christianity that seemed to be working for me just fine. And my life as a Christian hasn't always been easy. I'm a Christian because it is true. I'm a Christian because I want to live in a way that reflects the truth. I'm a Christian because my high regard for the truth leaves me no alternative." And so either Christianity is true or it's not. Either Jesus was raised from the dead or he wasn't. If the resurrection did not happen, then all of Christianity is false. Even Paul says that in 1 Corinthians 15, verse 17. He says, "And if Christ has not been raised, our preaching is useless, and so is your faith." He says that our faith is in vain and we are still in our sins. But if the resurrection did happen, then all of Christianity is true. And if Christianity is true, it is true for everyone, whether they believe it or not, whether they like it or not, whether they choose to follow it or not. Our response to that has eternal ramifications. So if Christianity is true, it is true regardless of if you believe it. It is true regardless of if you like it or agree with it. It is true regardless of how you've observed some so-called Christians behave. It is true regardless of the church hurt that you may have experienced. You can walk away from something because you've been hurt or because it no longer fits your preferences or your likes or your desires or feelings. But you walking away from it doesn't make it any less true. In fact, the opposite is true as well. Some people might say, well, people are only Christians because it makes them feel good or gives them joy, because it comforts them. And while those things all might actually be true, there's great joy that comes from serving the Lord. There is great comfort from the Holy Spirit living inside of us. But even if that is why someone chooses to believe in Christianity, to follow Christianity, it's not what makes it true or false. You see, if the resurrection is true, then Christianity is true. And we have good reason to believe that this is the case. Going back to the book, again, in the deconstruction of Christianity, Alisa Childers and Tim Barnett write, Jesus didn't come bearing witness to a truth or his truth. He came as a witness to the truth. As John 14:6 says, Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and the life, and no man comes to the Father except through me. And that is exactly why this ministry exists, to examine the evidence for Christianity, to engage culture with kindness and conviction, and to encounter Jesus as the way, the truth, and the life. God bless. We'll see you next time.